How was this received in the House of Commons?
By the Tories very well, in fairness, that they quite like this. Many of the things in here were what we'd expected all along. So
everything leaks, doesn't it?
Well, it wasn't much leaking, it's actually guesswork. Surprisingly, this was the first mini-budget I've come across that hasn't been leaked.
Okay.
So a lot of it was guesswork. So the 5p thing seemed a bit of an obvious thing to do. He was obviously going to do something about national insurance, and certainly he'd signalled he wasn't going to scrap it. I think he should have done, but he decided not to do that. So on the Tory benches, yep, they quite liked it. They like a chancellor who's already given away £400 billion anyway, so chancellors who give away money are always popular. Going down the line when he has to start raising it, it's going to be a bit more tricky. Labour not so much. They weren't so happy with it. Their big thing at the moment is a windfall tax on North Sea oil and gas. That's how they would have done it. They would have then postponed the national insurance increase. So they didn't really like it. And things like the 5p cut, for instance, in petrol, all that's done is brought us back to last week because it's risen by 5p.
Yeah, and our neighbours like Ireland have cut by about 17p.
That's right, yes. I mean, all over Europe they've been cutting it. Sweden's cut it, France has cut it by a lot more than we have. So the 5p really is neither here nor there. And it could well be the way that things are looking, depending on how sanctions go against Russia, we could be looking at £2 for a litre of petrol, £3 for a litre of diesel.
Yeah, and does the government get the blame when these things happen?
I think they probably do eventually. I mean, the whole cost of living crisis does actually fall on the government. Yes, we know there are external things. We know about Ukraine. We know about the Russian sanctions. That hasn't helped matters. But we've been heading in this direction, and what Rishi Sunak hasn't done is properly tackle the fact that the cost of living crisis is a genuine crisis and lower paid people are going to be in real trouble. And so the things he did today actually benefit all of us. So the way that he did the national insurance thing, we all get the £330 a year.
Yeah, but then extra. The more we earn, the more we pay it back, of course. But
yes, I mean in other taxation. But the whole thing is that it wasn't targeted. I mean, if he was going to keep the national insurance rise, what he could have done is say, right, this is a separate tax. It's a health and social security levy, treat as a special tax, started at 30,000, which is average income.
Now, Labour, of course, a united Labour Party, and remarkable. They obviously think they've got half a chance next time round, and the hard left have gone quiet or been expunged. How good is Rachel Reeves at the dispatch box for Labour? Because that's very important, isn't it?
Yeah, I thought she was quite good today. That she was able to actually mix it with a bit of humour. Her Alice in Wonderland jokes about Rishi Sunak, that went down quite well. She gave a straightforward analysis of where he'd gone wrong. She picked him up on a number of things. I mean, a key area I thought was missing from this, and obviously so did Rachel Reeves, was over military spending. That here we are dealing with Russia. One of the things that had been mooted was we would reverse the cuts in the army and save the jobs of 9,000 soldiers.
Let me get this right. The Labour Party now is the party that wants to raise military spending, that wants to stop tax rises, and is speaking up for business, apart from oil and gas companies.
Yes, that's broadly it, I mean, a sudden reversal from the previous Labour Party,
There isn't much to choose between them, is there?
I think there probably is, because I think we're in a different kind of world. That we've been through the populist phase. So we've had populist leaders like Donald Trump in America, Boris Johnson over here. I think now that people are looking for a competent leader, and that's where Keir Starmer might actually score, because he comes across as knowing what he's talking about, and he comes across as competent.
But in terms of policy, there are not huge ideological choices, are there, between the two parties as we face the next election?
Well, I mean, the big problem is that Labour is not coming out with that many policies, and we'll see an awful lot more over the coming year, but we haven't seen a great deal now. And I think that there have been events going on where you found the Labour Party in line with the government. Labour Party broadly supported Boris Johnson over various COVID restrictions. They've always been behind him when they've been brought in. They're foursquare behind him as far as his dealings with Ukraine. So because politics has been so peculiar for the last 2 years, you've ended up with a Labour Party which has been supporting a government much more often than they perhaps are comfortable with. But those are events.
I can't tell them apart.